Hello. The story I want to share with you today takes place in California, USA, a state renowned for its robust and diverse economy. California is a hub of technology, entertainment, and culture, home to vibrant, globally famous cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Our main character is Jacy Bill Gates, born on May 3rd, 1980. Jacy was a smart and beautiful girl who lived with her mother and stepfather in a happy, loving household. Her mother and stepfather adored her deeply. Initially, the family resided in the city of Acalia, part of Los Angeles. However, seeking a safer community for their children, Jacy's parents decided to relocate to the small town of Mayer, about 700 kilometers away. On June 10th, 1991, a Monday morning, Jacy's mother, Terry Probin, who worked arranging materials at a printing house, left for work early. 11-year-old Jacy, dressed in her favorite pink outfit, set off alone, walking from home to the school bus stop. Halfway there, a gray car pulled up beside her and rolled down its window. Thinking the driver might need directions, she approached innocently. But in an instant, the man inside stunned her with an electric shotgun. A woman then leapt out of the car, swiftly dragging Jacy inside before speeding off. By sheer chance, Jacy's stepfather, Carl Probin, witnessed the horrifying scene from their home as his daughter was pulled into the vehicle. He chased after the car in desperation, but couldn't catch up, unable even to glimpse the license plate. He only noted 2 people inside, including a woman. Without hesitation, he called the police. American law enforcement reacted swiftly. Within hours, local media outlets broadcast the story, urging the public to help rescue the little girl as soon as possible. A massive police force was deployed, complete with helicopters and trained dogs, while countless volunteers joined the search. Tragically, no leads emerged. Using descriptions from Jacy's classmates and stepfather, police sketched portraits of the suspects, but the distance from which they were seen made accuracy uncertain. Days later, tens of thousands of flyers and posters spread across businesses nationwide. Since Jacy loved pink, the town of Mayer was soon adorned with pink ribbons, a reminder of her disappearance and a symbol of community support for her family. To amplify their efforts, Jacy's mother founded an organization called Jacy's Hope, thanking volunteers, advisors, and raising funds. T-shirts, sweatshirts, and missing person posters featuring Jacy circulated widely. A singer even composed a special song for her. The case gripped the nation, appearing on the popular TV show America's Most Wanted. Yet despite everyone's efforts, Jacy remained lost. In despair, police wondered if the culprit might be someone close to her. They first suspected her stepfather, Carl, the sole eyewitness. If he were the mastermind, it could explain the lack of clues. They brought him in for questioning and administered a lie detector test, but nothing irregular surfaced, so he was cleared. Next, they turned to Jacy's biological father, Ken Lighton. Perhaps he'd resorted to extreme measures to reclaim his daughter. But investigation revealed Ken didn't even know he had a child. He and Terry had once been romantically involved, but parted ways, with Terry never disclosing her pregnancy. Ken, too, was ruled out. With no viable suspects, the case stalled. Over time, it faded from public attention. Rumors swirled that Jacy might have been abandoned in a desolate place, no longer alive. Yet Terry refused to give up, insisting her daughter was still out there. Over 1 million missing person notices were distributed, and technology was used to simulate how Jacy might look as she aged. Still, she seemed to have vanished without a trace. So where did she go? What horrors did she endure? Let's rewind to that fateful day, June 10th, 1991. After being dragged into the car, Jacy faintly overheard a conversation between the man and woman. "Oh my God, we actually got her and got away. It's unbelievable." When she fully regained consciousness, she was 180 kilometers from home. Her world had transformed. She was confined in a dilapidated shed surrounded by torn tents draped in plastic sheets, piled with old junk and trash. It looked like an abandoned backyard no one would notice. Her captors were a deranged couple. The husband, Philip Radio, and his wife, Nancy. Philip, born in California in 1951, had a criminal past. After high school, at age 21, he assaulted a 14-year-old girl. Arrested but not convicted, he escaped punishment when the girl's family, protecting her reputation, refused to let her testify. Later, Philip married, but his abusive behavior drove his first wife to divorce him through legal intervention. In 1976, at 25, he kidnapped a 25-year-old woman named Catherine, holding her in a shed for months and subjecting her to depravity. A patrolling officer grew suspicious of a car parked near the shed, investigated, and exposed the crime. Catherine's testimony secured Philip a 50-year sentence. Oddly, during his imprisonment, Nancy, a frequent visitor to her uncle in the same prison, fell for Philip. On October 5th, 1981, they married behind bars in a bizarre twist. On August 26, 1988, after 11 years, Philip was paroled for good behavior, fitted with an ankle monitor. Local prosecutors checked on him regularly to prevent further crimes. But Philip showed no remorse, plotting more atrocities. Nancy, seemingly unhinged herself, not only failed to stop him, but joined in. Together, they roamed the city in their car until they spotted Jacy walking alone. They didn't hesitate. They locked her in a soundproof shed Philip had built in their backyard. No matter how loudly she screamed, no one could hear. He handcuffed her, stripped her bare, and warned her against shouting or trying to escape, claiming her parents didn't want her, and she was now a homeless nobody. Guard dogs patrolled outside, ready to tear her apart if she fled. For the first week, Jacy remained handcuffed, with Philip as her only contact. He brought her fast food occasionally and spoke to her, handing her a bucket for sanitation. He raped her repeatedly, at least weekly, for 3 years. She wasn't allowed to read or write, nor even utter her own name. They called her Elisa. Philip later gave her a TV, restricted to shopping channels, keeping her oblivious to the outside world's frantic search. In March 1994, Philip brought her cooked food for the first time. Not just cheap scraps, because Jacy, then 13, was pregnant with his child. He refused her hospital care, instead teaching her basic birthing skills from books. On August 18, 1994, Jacy gave birth to her first daughter, a faint smile breaking through her despair as she finally had company. She nurtured her baby with lessons gleaned from TV. In 1997, she bore a second daughter. To accommodate the children, Philip erected a larger tent in the backyard. Jacy was allowed out of the shed to tend to them there. Though she was their mother, Philip forced the girls to call Nancy Mom and Jacy their big sister to appease his wife and deceive outsiders, who assumed the children were Nancy's. 18 years passed since Jacy's abduction. Terry never stopped searching. Then a breakthrough came. On August 24th, 2009, Philip visited the FBI office in San Francisco, leaving a document outlining his views on religion and gender, claiming he'd reformed and could help others do the same. He even brought Jacy's daughters to the University of California campus, seeking to teach about religion. The campus police grew involved, and Philip met Lisa Campbell, the department head. She found him eccentric and noticed the girls' odd behavior. Fearful, subdued, and overly submissive to him. Sensing something amiss, Lisa asked Philip to sign a form and return the next day. She discreetly had an officer investigate him, uncovering his extensive criminal record. The next afternoon, Philip returned with the girls, who appeared pale, as if rarely exposed to sunlight. Lisa contacted Philip's parole officer, who panicked upon learning he was with minors, a violation of his parole terms, given his history. Investigators visited Philip's home, finding only Nancy and his elderly mother. Philip claimed the girls were neighbors' kids, permitted by their parents to join him at the university. Skeptical, authorities demanded he bring the children and their parents to the parole office the following day. On August 26, 2009, Philip arrived with the girls and Jacy, who introduced herself as Elisa. She and her daughters initially praised Philip as a good man who treated them well, scripted responses he'd rehearsed with them. But when pressed to verify her identity, Jacy grew defensive and agitated. Investigators separated her and the girls, probing further. Finally, With police present, Jacy summoned the courage to reveal her true name, Jacy. She recounted how, 18 years earlier, Philip and Nancy had kidnapped her, holding her captive in their backyard with no chance of escape. Stunned, the police arrested the couple immediately. When Terry received the call from authorities, her emotions erupted. She couldn't believe she'd see her daughter again after 18 relentless years. Their reunion was tearful, Jacy clinging to her mother. Thankfully, Jacy and her daughters were in good health. Carl, her stepfather, rejoiced too. Though cleared as a suspect, he'd endured years of baseless suspicion, leaving him exhausted. Police later inspected the site of Jacy's captivity, horrified by the squalor. The backyard held 2 flimsy shacks amid heaps of garbage and discarded items, next to the gray car Philip had used in the abduction. The shed where Jacy lived was wretched. Unimaginable that she'd survived 18 years there, raising 2 daughters alone. Philip faced 29 charges. He initially denied them, but buckled under overwhelming evidence. On June 2nd, 2011, he was sentenced to 431 years in prison under state law. Nancy received 36 years. Yet the story doesn't end there. Philip, a repeat offender, had been under government supervision post-parole. Records show parole officers visited his home 60 times since Jacy's abduction, yet never noticed anything odd in the backyard. Police hadn't considered him a suspect, despite his home being just a 2-hour drive from Jacy's and his 1976 crime near South Lake Tahoe, close to where she lived. Missed clues abounded. In 2002, the fire department received a call about an injured child at Philip's home, despite him having no kids, but didn't alert parole authorities. In 2006, neighbors reported seeing children in his backyard, prompting a 30-minute police visit that never inspected the area. This negligence fueled Jacy's 18-year hell. In July 2010, California awarded her $20 million for the authorities' failures. The local sheriff publicly apologized. Jacy's family sued the U.S. government, alleging Philip violated parole by drinking and using drugs, grounds to revoke his release and prevent her ordeal. The lawsuit was dismissed. That year, Jacy founded the Jacy Foundation to aid families like hers, scarred by trauma. In July 2011, she published her memoir, A Stolen Life, chronicling her captivity. The prolonged control and brainwashing left her wary of outsiders, hesitant to reveal her identity even after rescue. With her family's support, she emerged from the darkness, finding happiness. In July 2016, Jacy released her second book, Freedom, My Book of Firsts, detailing her life post-rescue, her recovery, and reintegration into society. She hopes it inspires other survivors. I firmly believe we each hold the key to our own happiness. Grasp it tightly. That's the end of today's story. Until next time, goodbye. Criminal Psychology Perspective Asterisk. From a criminal psychology standpoint, Philip Radio exemplifies a predatory psychopath with a pattern of escalating violence and manipulation. His prior offenses, assaulting a teenager, abusing his wife, and kidnapping Catherine, reveal a lack of empathy and a compulsion to dominate, traits typical of antisocial personality disorder. His marriage to Nancy, who enabled and participated in his crimes, suggests a folie à deux, a shared delusional disorder where one partner adopts the other's warped reality. Nancy's complicity likely stemmed from dependency and a distorted loyalty, amplifying Philip's control. Jacy's prolonged captivity reflects Stockholm Syndrome's insidious effects. Years of isolation, threats, and forced dependence eroded her autonomy, binding her psychologically to her captors, evident in her initial defense of Philip during questioning. Her resilience, however, shines through her eventual disclosure and recovery, bolstered by familial support. Philip's audacity in approaching the FBI and university, despite his crimes, underscores his grandiose self-view and belief in his own invincibility. Classic narcissistic traits. This case highlights how systemic oversight can embolden such offenders, prolonging victims' suffering, and underscores the critical need for rigorous parole monitoring and victim-centered intervention. From a criminal psychology standpoint, Philip Radio exemplifies a predatory psychopath with a pattern of escalating violence and manipulation. His prior offenses, assaulting a teenager, abusing his wife, and kidnapping Catherine, reveal a lack of empathy and a compulsion to dominate, traits typical of antisocial personality disorder. His marriage to Nancy, who enabled and participated in his crimes, suggests a folie à deux, a shared delusional disorder where one partner adopts the other's warped reality. Nancy's complicity likely stemmed from dependency and a distorted loyalty, amplifying Philip's control. Jacy's prolonged captivity reflects Stockholm Syndrome's insidious effects. Years of isolation, threats, and forced dependence eroded her autonomy, binding her psychologically to her captors, evident in her initial defense of Philip during questioning. Her resilience, however, shines through her eventual disclosure and recovery, bolstered by familial support. Philip's audacity in approaching the FBI and university, despite his crimes, underscores his grandiose self-view and belief in his own invincibility, classic narcissistic traits. This case highlights how systemic oversight can embolden such offenders, prolonging victims' suffering, and underscores the critical need for rigorous parole monitoring and victim-centered intervention.